We do have a lot of questions, and I just want to take a real quick pause to let everybody know that we're going to have another set of veterans here next week. So some of these questions will be duplicated, and the ones that we don't get to tonight we'll do next week as well. But when we were asking about the thanking you for your service, Brian said to ask people their story, or take the time to educate yourself or your youngsters about military service. Somebody commented that they're afraid to ask stories in case it triggers, and then some other people made comments about that as well. So I just want to say, what's the best way to like approach it? Like how can we ask you or let you know that it's okay to share with us?
Okay, I'm going to take that one first.
Sure.
Then I'll let you all go. So first off, for me, don't ask me my story unless you and I have a relationship, because then it just feels like you want to be entertained. That it's kind of like watching one of the old World War II or Korean War movies, and you want to vicariously have that experience without any of the risk. So don't ask me about my story until you have a relationship with me. And if you don't have a relationship with a vet, the last thing you want to do is your first interaction is, well, why don't you tell me what it's like? Because first off, there's no fucking way we can tell you what it was like, depending on what our time of service was, right? If we were in conflict, there is no fucking way that you're ever going to understand what that was like. And so asking me to tell my story and tell you what it was like ain't going to work. But if you have a relationship with me and there's a sense of trust that you're willing to sit there and hear it and understand that, one, you don't have to apologize to me. You don't have to feel sympathy for me. What you have to do is understand that what you asked for is what it was like for me. And I'm going to tell you the best I can, but it's not going to be pretty, and I'm not going to edit it for you. So I think the thing is before you ask somebody to tell you their story, even with a relationship, damn sure make sure you're ready to hear it. Because if you're not ready to hear it and you do that blank stare, zone out look, you just lost me, and you just lost any vet that ever has a story to tell. And that's my take on it.
Yeah, I guess I'll go next. I got to agree with Lonny on this one, because people have a thing about they commoditize, suffering, right? They don't want to hear about the day that we went out on patrol and everything went well. They want to hear about the days we went out and we got blown up or we got hurt, right? So that's why we open up generally to people that we trust. And when we trust you, that's like, hey man, we're putting our lives in your hand, essentially. And I've had times people, you're like, you know what, I don't want to hear anymore, or whatever, or you know what, don't ever tell me anything like this ever again, and that's really hurtful, because I'm opening up to you, telling you my experiences of what I went through that hurt me, and for people to do that, to shut you down, is really hurtful. Another thing is, don't assume that we all kill people or interrupt it and say, oh, did you kill people, right? And this goes for people that we don't know and people that we are close to as well. It's like, look, dude, this is not something you just generally lackadaisically ask somebody, regardless of how well you knew them. If they want to talk to you about it, they'll talk to you about it. Don't just assume that we're all doing that. And that's definitely a problematic thing that I've found with people in my family. But it's like when I start telling them what happened, then all of a sudden it's too much, right? Because that's what I was saying. They commoditize that suffering, right? Because people don't want to hear about it when we just had a good day, when everything went well on patrol. We went out on patrol, we came back in, ate chow, went to bed. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear about when, the bridge over the River Kwai, right? They want to see and hear the action film, and that's really frustrating at times. And I get it, but it's frustrating. And another thing I did want to add, another great place to volunteer is the vet centers. Really awesome place. I've been going to the vet center for the last 4 or 5 years. I absolutely love it. The volunteers there are awesome. So if you're also looking for a place to volunteer, that's a really good place too.
Can we go to Brian next, since he was the one who suggested it?
Yeah, Brian, go.
Yep. I guess it's, for me, it's situational. I'm an Air Force guy, space guy, so I don't have the in-your-face combat experience. My experience was different, about as different as it can get. For instance, one of my jobs in the Air Force was to be something called a missileer. Basically, I sat in a hole in northern Montana for 24 to 72 hours on a bad shift at a time, basically waiting for somebody to splash me a message saying, okay, you got to launch 10 missiles at people on halfway around the globe. In 30 minutes, you're going to kill millions of people. So that's just one of my things. I mean, I've done some other things as well. But none of the in-your-face stuff that people like Lonny or Ed might have done. So I guess, yes, ask people to tell you their story, but don't look at it as entertainment or patronizing. Just make those veterans feel valued. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Don't patronize. It's like, hey, okay, how many people did you shoot in the face? We want to know that. No, don't do that. It's all about letting them know, hey, they were appreciated without being trite. They're valued, and we care about you guys. So that's really my thing. And again, every vet is going to be a little different. Some will just yabber on for hours. Others, they're like, you know what? I can't talk about this because it's too raw. And if you get that, understand and just kind of just kind of back off. Don't be insistent about it, but learn how to read that vet, for lack of a better term, and act accordingly. Over.
Anybody
Does
else?
anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I could say a few words on that too. I mean, I agree also with you, Lonny, going back to that, anytime somebody asks me that, and they do, all the time out of the blue, they want to know, oh, you were in the Marines, or tell me about this, that. I just try to, if it's somebody like you said, I don't have a relationship with, that's really awkward for me. I'm not going to open up and tell you anything. I just try to keep it short and boring and make them kind of go away. That's kind of what I do. Oh, I did this. Wasn't that exciting. That's the end. And I'm done. So that's how I do it. Over.
Anybody else? Cool. Yeah, I think the whole story thing is weird. I didn't actually start talking about my time in Vietnam in any way, shape, or form until probably 2004. I got out of, so I was discharged in 1970. And so from 1970 until 2004, 2005, the only people I ever talked to about my time in the military were other non-vets. And usually it wasn't about the shit. Usually it was about the good times, the times that we all came home, the times that we sat down and drank a beer and listened to some music, or just hung out and we're back in base camp and feeling like, okay, there's another day and we're here. So other than that, until 2004, I really didn't talk about it. And I became a high school teacher in 2003. And I got asked by one of the English teachers who taught AP literature. They read a book called The Things They Carried, and asked me if I was willing to come in and talk to them about the book. And I said, sure. But it's going to be unfiltered. And it's going to be based on my particular experience. And they all need to understand that my story is not every veteran's story. It's not every Vietnam veteran's story. It sure as hell doesn't even come close. And that there are a few questions they could not ask. And I didn't have to say what that was. And the other thing I told them they needed to understand is that for me to actually open up, I was going to have to cry. You know, I was going to have to mourn, and I was going to have to go through the feelings that I stuffed away for many years in order to be able to be honest with them at the same time and discuss their reading and what their take was from it versus my experience in that. If you've never read the book, it's an interesting book. It's a basically allegories. It's a story about his story. The guy that wrote the book was a combat vet, but he wrote stories about his story. So you know, it's like one of those wonderful allegories that people get. But yeah, I just, that's the thing. It takes us, and I agree, you know, with everybody. It takes time, you know, to kind of get there, you know, and so I think you have to be careful when you ask about those stories. I mean, my father served in the Second World War. He served with Patton's army, and to the day he died, and he died young, he never ever talked to me about his time in the military. Just never. He could just not go there. And I understand it. First off, being a Jewish man in the Second World War was a pretty heavy duty thing. And then he did all of his basic training was in the South in the 40s, you know, so being Jewish and being from New York, he did not do well in the South in the military. But he did not talk about his time actually in conflict. And to the day he died, I have no idea. I just know that he was there. And that's kind of like, I think a lot of us who have been in direct conflict, it takes us a while, and it takes a whole bunch of trust to get there. And I agree with Nate, you know, it's like nobody wants to hear the good stuff. Nobody wants to hear the happy part of it, right? They all want to hear the blood and guts and gore of it. Kind of reminds me of Alice's Restaurant, the song that Arlo Guthrie sang, where you know he's in the draft center and he's with the doctor and he's jumping up and down. He says, you know, Doc, I want to kill, I want blood and guts and gore between my teeth. You know, and I think often people, that's what they're looking for, and that's the piece that we most likely don't want to talk a whole lot about. But that's, again, you know, it's being careful about who you talk to and about what you talk about, and don't approach it lightly, and don't approach it in any kind of casual manner. This is it's not for entertainment. If you want to know, then be ready to hear it. And once you bite off that piece, don't you dare fucking back off. You know. Because that's a betrayal that we really just don't need.